Hello and welcome to another Escape from Tarkov video. Today we are going to be doing a Shturman guide, and I personally think Shturman's one of the harder bosses. On screen is where he spawns. He spawns in woods. In red is where you'll find him. He can be anywhere in there, and he spawns with 2 to 4 guards, I believe. I have to double check that. But they are called the Loser Brothers. Something like Svetaluski Brothers. You know, people just call them the Loser Brothers. And in blue are areas where I would suggest looking for players. That's where most players sit, up on Sniper Rock, on the spines, and around the rocks on the shoreline there. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that those spots are clear before you engage Shturman. Right, the wiki says he only has 2 guards, but I can swear that I've killed him and he's had 3 or 4, but that might just be my imagination. So my strategy for killing him is... Now, most people don't recommend taking him in a firefight at range, but I've only ever killed him as a sniper on woods. I've never went in with to fight him in CQB. I've always held back and killed him as a sniper. Now, that works for me. It might not work for you. What might be best for you is to take something that is capable of sniping at long range, but capable of full auto in close quarters as well, like a DTMDR or a FAL. And then when you go into the wood yards, you can both take them to distance and close range, so you've got that option available to you. Now the pictures I'm showing on screen are areas where I usually find he goes and sits when he's been shot at. So that's the wood piles next to the red tin, it's by the big aircraft hangar warehouse to the right of there, and the large spool and sandbags. Those are the 3 areas I mainly find him when he's got into a fight and he's retreating. Now Shturman doesn't really have any armour. What makes him a pain is he's got a large health pool, 792, and honestly he is very dangerous for that SVD. He should always spawn with definitely the 2 weapons in the middle. The Red Rebel is an additional extra, and if you see that Red Rebel in his scabbard slot, you want to put that into your melee slot. You want to drop your melee weapon as long as it's not a Red Rebel, and you want to stick that straight in the slot, because that is 6 million rubles worth of weapon right there if you manage to get out and survive the raid on the flea market. Other than that, he doesn't wear any armor, so theoretically if you wanted to stick a scope on an MP9, MP5, MPX and run with rip rounds, you could one-shot him in the head, theoretically. Now we have his guards that have slightly less health. It's 740, but it's still a lot, and they carry a much more eclectic selection of weapons. From bolt-action Mosins to fully automatic VSSs, they can be a pain to deal with. Honestly, 9 times out of 10 when I'm fighting Shturman, I'm dying to the brothers, not the actual boss himself. And it sounds counterproductive, but you want them to spawn with the VSS and the SR25 and the SVDs, because they're the more expensive weapons. And if these 2 spawn with good weapons, that increases your profits overall. Now the only time I'd be worried about looting ammunition off the boss and the brothers is when they're carrying the SKS, which can have BP rounds, or maybe the SVD if they've got the 7N1 rounds, because they can be expensive as well. But the Loser Brothers, they wear armor, and they can wear forts, they can wear class 5s and class 4s and 3s, so they are much more difficult to deal with. They shouldn't be wearing helmets. The only headgear they wear is like the night vision sort of headdress thing, I don't know what it's called, the headwear. It just looks like a bondage mask to me without the straps, and then you've got the front camera part, but that's the only thing they should wear. So if you're going to fight them with something close range, you're going to want something that can be fully automatic and can punch through at least class 6. Now I would not recommend a bolt action rifle. That being said, if you absolutely want the cheapest option available that can put him down, the M700 is a reasonable touch. You can pick up an M700 in the flea market for around 30 to 40,000 rubles, which is 10 to 20,000 rubles cheaper than a Mosin. And if you're using M61 or M62, you've got the same kill chance and penetration chance as, a 7N1 S&B round. So it's just something to keep in mind. But I would recommend that you go semi-automatic with the SVD, the Hunter, M1A, SR25, or if you can afford it, the fully automatic FAL and the DTMDR, are both fantastic weapons to use in close quarters combat with these Scav bosses. I would recommend whatever gun you pick, put a scope on the top because this is woods, and a canted sight, or have a scope that has one of those, you know, the abilities to switch, like the L-can, which you can switch to an iron sight. Now for body armor, I'm just recommending the standard level 4 armored vest you can get from Ragman, or Gen 5. I say Gen 5 because it's a level 5, but it's Gen 4. The Gen 4 armor if you don't feel comfortable. Now the reason I wouldn't worry about armor too much, especially, you know, fighting Shturman, is one, him and his mates are going to be using rounds that can punch through class 6, really. Most of the time they're going to be having no troubles going through class 4 to 6. And other players on the map are likely going to be aiming for your head. So if you've got a class, you know, 4 head, a 4 helmet on, and you're using class 6 body armor and class 5, it will help you stay alive in certain situations, but it's not going to be the most effective money-wise. Right, so this is Shturman. He drops his SVD, which is worth about 90,000 rubles, and then his AK-105. It's only worth about 50, and that's being generous. You can usually, well, 40. Usually you can buy these for 20 to 30,000, and the scope on top only adds an extra 10k. He didn't really have much grenades on him, and the ammunition wasn't worth anything, but what you're killing him for is that chance of the Red Rebel in a scabbard slot, and he drops this key, the Shturman key, and that key will open a stash on woods that's right, you know, usually right next to him. It's right in the middle of the lumberyard. I should really show him where that is. I'll see if I can't get a quick picture of that. Right, I went and found one. So basically it's just near the log piles. You see that toolbox sat on the tyre? That's it. You can see the warehouse and the red tin building on the left, and that's where it's located. Now, for what's actually in the box, well, it's a bit of hit and miss. With the key being worth 170,000 rubles, I got just shy of 200,000 rubles out of this box worth, but it wasn't a lot of items that might not sell for that much. It's a bit of a gamble. But it's a gamble because you can also get a Red Rebel pickaxe from this box. So if you get that, that's 6 million, you know what I mean? That's easy money. Now, I don't know the drop rates, so I can't tell you if it's worth it or not, but I would always, if it's safe enough to do so, open Shturman's box just for the second chance at a Red Rebel. That would be my way of thinking at it. But the gamble here is you're splitting a 1 slot 170,000 ruble item that is easy to stick in your secure container and still get out with, into potentially loads of items that aren't worth as much single slot value and take up a lot of room. So it's completely up to you whether you just want to sell the key for profit or you want to risk it for a Red Rebel. Now we're going on to the Loser Brothers. Now these, they're not massive money. Like unlike other guards, they don't have as many grenades, they don't have as many helmets. The helmets are surprisingly a lot of money, but they still carry some good weapons. You know, an SR-25 is 65,000 rubles, that's not bad. And the magazines for the SR-25, which I didn't count here, but I do later on in the video, are actually like 15,000 rubles if you get them found in raid status, so that's not a bad amount of money. 2 of them 30,000, if you kill 2 guards, that's 60,000 rubles. I think personally, looking at the loot spread across the Loser Brothers and Shturman himself, he could use a bit of a buff. When you look at the likes of Killer being nearly 750,000 rubles for a single boss kill, and arguably he's far easier to kill than Shturman. Now, the weird thing is Shturman has the potential to be one of the best money-making bosses in the game to kill, but the rarity of that happening is, you know, fundamentally, yep, Shturman can drop the Red Rebel Ice Pick worth, you know, 6 million rubles, but the other bosses can also drop the red keycard worth 40-60 million rubles. So it's kind of like, looking at it, you know, I think Shturman should get a little buff, just because I think he's far more difficult a boss to kill, simply because of his location, his weaponry, and his tactics, in comparison to the likes of Rashala, Gluhar, and Killer, who are all predictable, who are all pretty easy to take on at distance. you know, he just doesn't have the same amount of monetary value. And a really easy way to do this would just to be, you know, take his 105 he uses, slap a 95 round mag on that, and give him 260 rounders in his pouch sockets slots worth, you know, with a Golnik 7N39. That would easily bump him up 100-200,000 rubles. Now we're on to the tips, and the first tip is, if you're fighting Shturman and you kill him and you go down, check this SUV on screen. It can spawn, I believe, the purple key card, which is worth a good amount of money, and you know what I mean, you'd hate to walk past that to check Shturman's corpse for him to have nothing. And double check the scabbard on Shturman. You don't want to be leaving a red rebel behind just because it's not something you're used to checking when you're looking for loot on, you know, scav bosses. And leave your melee weapon at home, because if you find the red rebel in the box or on Shturman, chances are you want to slide that into your scabbard as quick as possible, and that means you don't have to alt click. And I'm going to be honest, you know what I mean, like if you die because you didn't have a melee weapon, chances are you weren't going to survive. You know, it was a 50-50 chance anyway, so you're really not losing anything by leaving it behind. And that's going to be it for this video. I hope this helps you get some Shturman kills. I know you've got to kill him for a quest. Personally, he's my most difficult boss to fight, simply because my tactics don't really work against him. I like to take bosses out at range, and well, this one fights back at range, so that kind of messes me up a little bit. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you need any video making or any guide or any help like that, don't hesitate to drop me a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.